Thank you, Mr. Popli. I think I must convey a special thanks to you because all our vertical chairmen are very active. But in your case, we decided with you a very tough target to organize this program at a very short notice.
You said.
Also, you had done in the past a non-virtual program that was also a great success. Today, the participation is also normally it is better than we have more than 75 participants already, and some may join. I think this is a subject. I mean, in energy field today, renewable is the darling of everybody globally and in India, particularly in South Asia and India. We have included the we have a large focus on fossil fuel so far, and therefore it has been a matter of criticism. It has been a matter of concern that how do we minimize the impact of carbon emission and how do we balance. I mean, we have concluded in the past that it's not possible even in next 20, 30, 40 years to completely get over or get rid of fossil fuel. But we also have the challenge of enhancing the availability of power because though we have done a lot, but we have to go a long way. 1250. Last year I was talking that figure 1200. Now that figure perhaps is a little more than 1250 kilowatt hour per head per year. And we go on declining as compared to the global average. Earlier we were talking we are less than one third. Now that percentage, that is also a little worse. That means globally, we got China factor. China used to be 3 times of us. Now it is almost 4 times of us in per capita consumption of power. And China factor then influences the overall statistics globally. So therefore, we have a very, very difficult task. One, that we should increase generation of power. Another, how do we minimize the impact of climate change, and therefore, how do we reduce the proportion of fossil? That's a tough task for us. That it's not that we can go on increasing solar and that will do the job. So we have to increase coal-based generation also, and therefore we have to do more solar to balance with that. We have to do more wind, we have to do more solar, more nuclear. So I think in the last 18 months or so, India Energy Forum has focused on everything, not only on renewable, but all other forms of energy. We have another third challenge. And first challenge I mentioned to you is the challenge of enhancing our generation of power so that we catch up with some of the good countries. We can't catch up with highly advanced countries who may be in the range of 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 kilowatt hour per head per year. And now it seems we can't catch up even with China, which is comparable situation that they have already around 5,000. So that means we always say that we have a phase difference of almost 15 to 20 years with China. So when we increase, China increases further, and then it goes on, that process goes on. But then we have an absolute task of enhancing the energy consumption. And the second challenge I mentioned to you, that we also have the challenge of how do we balance it through renewables so that fossil fuel and renewable put together is under control. But we also have a third challenge, that our other component of energy consumption is also in difficulty. We have a huge energy consumption through petroleum sector. And there the challenge is that after our dependence on import is to the extent of 86% for crude and more than 50% for gas. So this is a third challenge. So if we have to reduce the dependence on import so far as petroleum sector is concerned, then for that purpose, we have to further enhance the production of power. Then we have to convert our diesel locomotives into, and we are converting into electric locomotives. We have to convert our transport system from liquid fuel or even CNG to electric vehicle. So let me you see these three challenges are moving together and contradicting the challenge of contradicting the requirement of also balancing the carbon emission issue. So it's not an easy job. Now, coming for today's discussion, and it is there where we said that in India Energy Forum, we are looking at renewable not only from the point of view of solar, we are looking at renewable from the point of view of a number of technologies, but even within solar technology, and that is what I had a few minutes of conversation with our vertical chairman, Mr. Popley, that now let us not do a general program on solar. Let us do a specific program on solar. Imagine we have ultra mega solar that will be coming in Rajasthan desert, and that will be coming in Ran of Kutch of Gujarat. Several thousand megawatt in gigawatt terms. I mean, maybe Jaisalmer you will see something like 15,000-20,000 megawatt or 30,000 megawatt. Maybe Khavda in Gujarat you will see rising from 5,000 megawatt to 10,000 megawatt to ultimately 50,000. So you will see in these two countries at around one place in the cluster, something like 20, 30, 40,000 megawatt at one cluster of capacities of solar. So that is one area. Second is hybrid solar and wind. That is another issue. So this is another category. Within solar, long back we started the process of rooftop solar, ground mounted solar for captive, the large industry in their own area, they will do. Then typical cases of a smaller solar. The other day I saw a cycle being attached with one more wheel and 5-6 people sitting. And on the top there is a module. And during daytime that gives energy, and that cycle fellow 4 or 5 fellows there. So you have a smaller applications of solar power. It's very small application. It doesn't have a grid. Then these days, particularly I am advocating, many other friends are advocating that one of the focus areas should be a medium type solar in rural areas, so that entire agriculture is on rural, and so that long transmission lines and distribution lines are avoided. In which case, even so-called balance, and we request the agriculturists to do their irrigation during daytime rather than what we used to do in the past, that do it in the 1 o'clock in the night, so that this does not attract our peak load requirement. So I think within solar, we should be coming out with a number of issues and number of challenges and focus on those, because each case will have a different dimension. Other than solar power, solar energy giving electricity, we can have irrigation, not necessarily through power route. We can have solar pumps, which does not convert solar energy into power and then power drives the pumps, but pump is driven by the solar energy itself. So that is another area. So you have to see all types of applications and all types of requirement that India has. And then, so that's why I requested Mr. Popley, coming back to today's topic, that let us now focus on floating solar, because just as India is endowed with huge reserve of coal, it is also endowed with huge blocks of now land. Like take, for example, our neighbor Bangladesh, they have huge deficit of power, but unfortunately, they don't have so much of land to use it for solar power. Many of the countries don't have so much of land to use it for solar power. So we are endowed with that thing. Similarly, we are also endowed with a lot of opportunities, a lot of potential for floating solar. I mean, Mr. Popley mentioned just now, a couple of years back, Terry did an exercise, and that exercise revealed that we have almost 18 to 20,000 square kilometer of reservoir, mainland reservoir in the it may be water reservoir, it may be pond, it may be this, it may be that. So 18 to 20,000 square kilometer of land, that gives us almost 300 gigawatt. 300 gigawatt of capacity inland. And this, I have seen in the area of solar and wind, these potentials through studies keep increasing because many of the areas are not explored. Since one thing I have learned listening to the very rich discussions in one of our petroleum seminars, that we feel this is the potential, but this potential is always understated because many of the areas were not explored. So one of a very eminent petroleum engineer mentioned in that seminar that 70% or 60% of India has not been explored from the point of view of liquid fuel and gas. That number may be overstated, but the fact is that if our process of exploration increases, the discovery of what is potential becomes more and more and more. So that's why you see today, wind solar potential is expected to be about 800 gigawatt in India. It might be more areas will be discovered. Similarly, wind potential is expected to be about 300 gigawatt. Now, more studies, it will be more. I came across a discussion, I was a part of that discussion, that now you have large capacity wind, 5.2 megawatt, one turbine, 5.2. Adanis are manufacturing. They've already tested. And that is a higher heights, much higher heights. So all the potential study that we have done in the past and the study that we will do in the future will unfold a different potential, because higher you go, then you have a different scenario. If you when we had 2 megawatt wind turbine, we have one potential. We have 5.2 megawatt turbine, you will on a higher height, larger blades, you will have another potential. So is the case with solar. The more and more area are studied, and the potentials keep increasing. So today's topic we will focus on floating solar, because as I was mentioning that we have the good luck of having not only mainland reservoir of water, but almost, I think, 7,500 kilometers of coastal line. And that area, to what extent, to what depth, and to what width inside the sea, we can go and do it. Because I also requested Mr. Copley that we will not only talk of opportunities, we will also talk of the challenges. Because it's no good saying that we can do 300 gigawatt. But can we do 300 gigawatt, which is technically possible to do? Is the infrastructure of construction, logistic, etc., today that is available, will it lead to that? Or there can be some research or some innovation on logistic itself. The way we approach, the way we create our deck, the way we do the erection, the way we lay the cables, all those things will matter. And I think these are areas where the potentials are explored. Our scientists, engineers, and managers, they work on how best we should create the right logistics, right technology, right methodology. And therefore, in today's discussion, we will only focus on floating solar. NTPC must be complimented that they have done at one place, Ramagundam. I had the luck of and a coincidence of doing Ramagundam project, and a big reservoir, balancing reservoir, very big balancing reservoir that brings water from a river, and that reservoir is huge. And in that reservoir, it has been possible to create 100 megawatt floating solar project. They have done in other Sipat or Simadri, they have done another solar project, and they are going to do a number of such floating projects. So these are a smaller one. But we also have reservoir within the country. When hydro projects are developed, like take for example Tehri is a huge hydro project, and its reservoir, I think it's so huge, and more or less stable water, and the flow of water and the vortex or any tide in the sea, those are the things which will lead to challenges. But I am 100% sure that all these challenges, with proper approach of innovating, the method of constructing and erecting it, and the method of operation and maintenance, definitely over a period of time they will be overcome. What is important is that these potentials must be properly investigated, studied, and appropriate method. Because one thing is there's a module. I before the beginning of the seminar, we were talking about the manufacturing capacity and BHL and all that. No, manufacturing capacity has already increased. Adani themselves, they are doing almost 4,000 megawatt of capacity, and there is there is a point to go, and there is a plan to take it to 10 gigawatt, 10,000 megawatt solar module manufacturing. There are others who are doing it. So that that awareness is there. Unlike in case of thermal, where we remained stuck up with BHL for decades, and BHL, even in early 2000, it remained stuck up at only 5,000 megawatt capacity potential of doing it. But then I was also interacting with them, and we tried to see that they raise it to 20,000 megawatt, which they did. But then in these cases, at least that awareness is there today. In every area, domestic manufacturing has as a subject, because of the call given by the Honorable Prime Minister himself, that has picked up. So will be the case, not only in respect of the main technology input of module and inverters, but also in the technology of construction erection. Method of innovation, innovative methods and innovative technology, innovative infrastructure, which will enable fulfilling our dream. So with that, let us listen to the experts on the subject. Let us focus on all areas of how India does a good job of enhancing the capacity, launching and enhancing the solar capacity to a reasonable proportion. Thank you very much. We don't have any government representative here, but if anybody is aware of something that is happening in the group from the government side, would you be able to throw some light? Because that question is, what is government approach? So, I mean, what government is thinking. But in renewable industry, it has always been driven by the developers. The government has, you see the way wind came, the wind solar is coming, and then government policy, when it sees that there is a scope, definitely it comes out. Like these days, they are coming out with pump storage and the policy of that nature. But on floating solar, whether there is a separate policy or separate scheme, I am not aware.
No, it was my.
You have seen the Jamal's presentation. Last slide he gave, that his company itself is engaged in some of the specific projects. Then there are others who are also doing. I think this has picked up. One of the reasons that we chose this as a subject, this is also one of the ways of trying to disseminate and trying to propagate that this is a good possibility. And the best that today we have been able to get out of the uncertainties that were created in the first presentation by BHL, now the following two presentations and the other presentations, that there is a gap. If you are getting typical solar power at 2 rupees 50 paise, 2 rupees 40 paise, here people are struggling at around 350 plus minus. And a point was made by one of the presenters that there are possibilities it will come down below. So I think it's a good effort. And that is the way it happens. It's a good effort. Now, people have gone to the extent of trying to find out what is it that is increasing the cost of erection, cost of completion, cost of construction, logistics, whole range of issues. Cost of sort of how do you keep it stable in the water, what arrangement you should make. Because module is module, but inverter is inverter. So that is not a problem. What the problem is, the whole logistic of doing it in a difficult location, cabling, etc., etc. So there, I think, as we go along, and some of the success stories will come in a smaller way and then in a bigger way. I mean, this is an area where one thinks that there is a ray of hope. A priority may not be there on this, because definitely it is not cheaper than the solar that you are getting on in different areas today. So obviously, there will be a potential to which we will go on going on the mainland. The moment you start getting into that picture that mainland saturation is coming, Parallelly, you will see innovations will happen also for the floating solar. And of course, in floating itself, if you do in the sea, there is one problem. If you do in the mainland reservoir, etc., then the problem may be much less. I think this is a good technological solution that is coming, not in terms of solar technology has changed, but in terms of basically the logistic of doing it has changed. I am not very sure to what extent government will try to give an incentive to do this, because the BHL presentation was aiming at sort of trying to subsidize this, subsidize. I think we have gone beyond that level, and technological solutions will emerge out of this, because R&D on R&D will happen on manufacturing of modules itself. That will definitely happen. The way big industrial houses have come, and the way big organizations like NTPC others are showing interest, R&D will definitely happen on your main thing. How do we get power from solar? How do we get power from wind on a higher level? So I think those researches will be there. Researches on logistics of doing it, that will happen out of actions that are going on, and some of the things are already. Very good point. Like you heard from, I also mentioned, some other speakers also mentioned that Terry did a potential study some time back, couple of years back, of more than 18 to 20,000 square kilometer of reservoir mainland and almost 300 gigawatt of potential. But then how do you use it? How do you use it? So there, definitely your point is very valid, that if it is private ownership, that is one thing. If it is government ownership, it will have to. So this will come. The way beginning has been made, and some of the speakers have brought out very clearly that something is happening. Like you have seen reservoir of NTPC in Ramagundam is owned by them, so therefore they have done it wherever they have the reserve. When it comes to the government ownership of there are company ownership, like reservoir of, let's say, uh, um, Tehri project is the biggest reservoir, one of the biggest reservoirs. So definitely, Tehri and others, with the consent of government, they can do something. So this will require segmentation. Now, what Mahajan mentioned, that is a different dimension. One is wind. So one day we will discuss wind separately. But on solar, again, there are two areas. One is onshore and offshore. That means you have reservoir in the mainland. You have one type sets of issues and challenges. And if you want to do it in the, I mentioned that 7,500 kilometer of coastline. If you are along the 7,500 of coastline in India, and we are endowed with that type of an advantage, then the issues will be different. So when we go along, we will pursue this subject. Someday we will discuss the challenges and opportunities in the coastline development of solar. But they will bring a different type of cabling in the mainland, and logistics in the mainland, anchoring in the mainland, because land will be available. And then other, if you go a little deeper into the seaside, then that will be different. Different. I think
Sir,
one thing is very
sir,
clear that it is not today excessively unaffordable. That's why we raised the question. I think Dr. Prasad also raised that question of per megawatt cost. We brought it down to per kilowatt hour of cost. So I think if it is in the range of 3.5, 3.6, and if it's at this stage of development, definitely it holds a good potential. And we will be pursuing this during the course of the year itself. On this subject we will do. And that's why I requested our vertical chairman, Mr. Popley, that renewables, that we will have to identify ourselves, structure our program so that it does not vacillate into so many things. We remain focused and try to bring out a very, very important point has come out, that if you have 18 to 20,000 square kilometer of reservoir, how much of it is owned by government? And if it is larger quantity is owned by government, does government have a policy to facilitate development on lease basis or what basis, etc.? Okay, that's fine. As I said that if you take renewable and you bring many things, then we don't remember. Today, our idea was on floating solar. There we find that in floating solar, again we divide into two. One that mainland reservoir and water bodies, and our coastline. The issues could be somewhat different. Ownership of the mainland reservoir, and that is one of the issues. As I said, that prima facie, the larger picture is that this is even at this preliminary stage of development in last 2 years, this is offering an affordable power rate. So that is a great thing. Then second good point that has come up is that very many organizations, big and small, they are coming out with solutions where cost is going to be higher. And that is mainly the cost of logistic, cost of construction, cost of connectivity, cabling, etc., etc. And they are trying to bring out, like in the end, he showed a picture of inverter in a compact way. So they are trying to bring out innovative solutions so that we cut down on cost. And a very promising statement was made that quite likely what is 370, 350, 360 will come down below 3 rupees. So I think those will be the affordable rates. I think we will pursue this subject. At this point of time, the main issue to take out with the government would be to write to the government, Ministry of Power, Ministry of Renewable Ministry, that we will take up the subject of offshore separately, but within the mainland, so much of potential is there. On the ownership issue, we should start thinking and start saying that okay, these are the encouraging. I will try to avoid the issue of subsidy, etc., etc. We will take up with BHCL. BHCL as the main manufacturer, and a presentation made by BHCL created a very horrible background that this is unaffordable, this is this high, that is that high, nothing can be done unless subsidy is given. That's very bad. I wish Mr. Day was present here, but I will separately speak to him and also speak to BHL chairman that the major manufacturer, they did not do much on solar manufacturing, somebody else is doing. And now when it is coming to this floating solar, I don't think BHL preparation is up to the mark, absolutely. Okay, with that we close. Thank you very much.